We're holding in Perek Lamed Ches. We have a heavy Perek ahead of us. When I say heavy, I don't mean quantity. It's not about the amount of pages. I mean that it's philosophically a heavy Perek. It's not a simple Perek. It's a very fundamental idea in Chassidus. But as they say in Yiddish, "M'darf halten Kop." So let's let's rewind a bit. Where are we? In the last few prakim, we've been talking about the supremacy and the primacy of deed. Hamaisa wa Iker. And the reason why is because Hashem wants a dira b'tachtoinim, and b'tachtoinim Hashem wants a dwelling place in the physical, and that's why even though learning Torah engenders a spectacular connection to Hashem, with the like of which no mitzvah can parallel. But still, thank you very much. But still, if there's a mitzvah to be done, you have to close your sefer. You have to go do the mitzvah, the physical deed, and that is because, again, the main thing is the deed, and that's why also as we spoke at the beginning of last week, that if you davened and you said a bracha, you said berachas hamazon, you said kriyashman, you didn't have kavana, you were yoitza because the deed was done. You moved your lips. But if you had all the kavana, but you didn't actually say the words, you didn't articulate the words, you didn't do the mitzvah. And that is all again reflects the idea of lehamedrash hua ikar ala maisa. That idea is maisa. If Hashem wanted the kavana, if Hashem wanted us to learn Torah and kavana, He would have kept us in Gan Eden. And Hashem sent us down here because He sent us the world of action, the world of asiyah. Because Hamaisa Iker, Hashem wants to have a dira b'tachtoinim in the lowest realm, and the lowest realm is Maisa, is Asiya, is action. And then last week we began to switch gears, and we said, nevertheless, the Chazal tell us, the Shalat tells us, and it's brought down in the Kitzvei Arizal, that a tefillah, a shar bracha b'lei kavana, if you say a tefillah or a bracha and you don't have kavana, it's like a guf b'lei neshama. It's like a guf without a neshama. So what does that mean? Didn't we just learn the main thing is the maisa, the main thing is the guf? So what is the big deal if I don't have kavana? And this is a larger question. This is really a larger issue, and that is, what is the place of spirituality in Yiddishkeit? When I say spirituality, I don't mean mitzvahs. I don't mean the actions that the Hashem commands us, but the simple meaning of the word spiritual. Spiritual as in love, as in awe, as in reverence, the feelings of connection, the kavanah, the emotions, the relationship. If as we learned in all the previous weeks, that Hamaisa or Iker, the main thing is the deed. So, is there a place for spirituality in Yiddishkeit? Is it at all important? Or are we simply robots, and our main job is not to feel and not to think, but our main thing is to do, and to give tzedakah, and to put on tefillin, and to say the words of davening? And that's what we're going to address in the following prakim. And obviously, as we started saying last week, spirituality plays a very, very important role in Yiddishkeit. However, spirituality doesn't play an important role on its own. Spirituality only plays an important role if and when it is part and parcel of the mitzvah. It is the kavanah of the mitzvah that is appended to the mitzvah.
You say the mitzvah is the ikar?
The mitzvah is the ikar. And the kavanah adds a very, very important dimension to the mitzvah. Without the mitzvah, the kavanah, the spirituality is nothing. So let's talk about this for a moment. Today I want to talk a little outside. I'm not even sure that we'll do inside, depending on how much we accomplish. What is a mitzvah? We have to go back. These are things that we've talked and Tanya discussed in different prakim. We're going to have to do a little review. What is a mitzvah? So the Alter Rebbe explains in the previous prakim, the main place the Alter Rebbe talks about this is in Perek Chav Gimel, Perek Chav Beis, and Perek Chav Gimel. That is everything that Hashem created here in this world everything here in this world has Hester, what's called Hester Panim. When you look at it, you don't know what it is. It's not obvious what it is. Because really everything is Hashem's Ratzon. Everything Hashem created was created because Hashem wanted it to be here. So, what is this cup? When I look at this cup, what do I see? I see a receptacle to put in something, to put in a drink, to drink. Is that really what this cup is? Really, what this cup was created to facilitate some sort of spiritual, divine mission, to be able to, some sort of service of Hashem. Because everything that's here, created the world, was created by Hashem's will, and Hashem's will is that everything should help and should be there to facilitate a Yid studying Torah and a Yid doing mitzvahs. But most of the things, you look around the world and you look around, you see, it isn't obvious. The function of every single thing, the truth of every single thing isn't really obvious, how that is part of and merely a implement and a tool of Hashem's Ratzon, of Hashem's desire. What is the exception to that rule? And by the way, that's why everything is klipa. We live in a world of klipa. Klipa means that there's a shell, everything is covered, the true meaning of everything, the true objective and the true goal of everything is covered. The only exception to this rule is mitzvahs. As we discussed in previous prakim, mitzvahs are pnimiyus haratzon. Pnimiyus haratzon means that they do not belie, they do not hide what they really are. A mitzvah is Hashem's will. When a person goes and puts up a mezuzah on the door, and you ask someone, what is that person doing? He's fulfilling Hashem's will. The act is transparent, completely transparent to what its truth is, and that's why it's called holy. That's why it's a holy act. And that's why a sefer is holy. Why? Because the sefer is transparent to, it's not klipa. It's transparent to what its true function really is.
But the sefer is covered. The cover is not a klipa?
You know, it's the intention. You know, it's
inside.
When you see the sefer,
what is it?
even like this in the bookshelf, what is this?
Sefer.
It's the wisdom of Hashem, right? That's what it is. It doesn't claim to be anything else other than what it is. So, for example, if someone sees you at work, and let's say that the reason why you're working is to support a family, but let's say someone sees you sitting at your office or wherever you're working, is it immediately apparent the reason why you're working, the truth? The person can think that you're there for a variety of reasons. You enjoy working, you want to make money, you want to face, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But when you come home and your wife, your husband, your child says, I need to get something from the store, and you pull out your credit card and you hand it over, so that act is a much more transparent act. The purpose of that act, which is your connection to your child, this act is transparent to that. Anyone looking at this act, it's not only about the person looking at it, but the act is transparent for what it is. As opposed to, you might be sitting in your office also because you love your child and you connect it to your child, but the act of you sitting and typing away on the computer does not reveal that love. It's not transparent to the love, as opposed to you handing over your credit card to your child, which that act, the love is transparent in that act. And that's a mashal. So the mashal, the nimshal obviously is a mitzvah. Every act of a mitzvah is transparent. Why am I doing the mitzvah? Because Hashem wants me to. So when I do this mitzvah, there is no klippa. I've removed all the klippas, and that's really what it means. Dira b'tachtoinim. I've removed the klippa. When my hand is doing the mitzvah, I've removed the klippa from my hand. My hand right now is doing what it's supposed to be doing. The energy in my hand is right now being elevated. I've removed the klippa snoiga from that. Any object with which I'm doing the mitzvah, I've removed the klippa. And that's how we make a dira b'tachtoinim collectively. When everyone does their part of removing the klippa from their part of the world and revealing within it the truth through doing mitzvahs. Now, what if, so let's say I work, like I said, when I work, it's not transparent. Someone could walk in and see I'm in a meeting and I'm screaming at someone, or someone screaming at me, and I'm I'm pacing the floors, I'm standing, I'm thinking, what does my family have to do with it, right? There's no connection over there. Okay, I come home, so my daughter says, Ta, I need to get something, I give the credit card. Now there are 3 ways that I can give the credit card. I can give the credit card and I can give a krechts. I can silent. Okay, here you go.
It's the most time.
What?
This is the
That's most of the time. you have a camera in my house?
Everybody. Everybody.
You can give over the credit card without any
No motion.
without any emotion, or you can give over the credit card with
Smile.
a big smile and say some nice words. I'm so happy that you're able to get yourself something with this or something of the like.
Take some extra.
Okay. Now, obviously, there's a difference between these 3 ways. But is the difference in the transparency of the nature of the act?
No.
No.
It's no trend. It's
Also, it's
Regardless of how I give over the credit card,
how you doing it.
the act is transparent to what its true function is. What am I doing? I am giving this to my daughter because I want her to have it and because I love her, right?
No clicker.
And regardless of whether I sigh or I smile or I'm completely expressionless when I do it, the transparency wasn't changed. So what was changed? What was changed? And do you see where we're going here? You can do a mitzvah, or you can do a mitzvah with kavana. That's really what we're trying to give the example over here for. The kavana of the mitzvah is the smile when you do the mitzvah. The kavana is the feelings behind it. What's it? Either way, when I do a mitzvah, this act is transparent to Hashem and creates a dir b'tachtonim, regardless of the kavana. So what does the kavana add? We all know it adds something. Going back to the example I gave, when I give with a smile, there's definitely something that's being added here. But what is that element that's being added? What is the element that's being added when I do a mitzvah with kavana?
It's joyful. You should be joyful. It's a joyful giver. You should be happy that you're giving it to someone who. You should be happy, joy.
That's definitely true in relationships. I'm going to try to pin it down a little, and define it a little further. Yeah.
The opposite would be the worst. To begrudge somebody something, that would be the worst. Reluctance, yeah, would be,
It's
that would
reluctant
be,
to do it. It's doing it.
yeah, they would feel it
So
immediately.
it's talking about a relationship between
yeah,
a parent and a child.
or even
Or
friends.
even is reluctant, but it's evident that there's still a relationship or love.
Yeah, but that's he said that. It's transparent.
Right, sure.
Transparency has that.
Is the same. Well, let's move on a little. We said before that the mitzvah, or the words of Torah that you say, is the guf, is the body, and the kavana is the neshama. Let's talk a little about the difference between a guf and a neshama. Everything that there is in this world receives energy from Hashem. Sorry?
We couldn't continue existing without.
It cannot continue existing without, right? So a rock
It's receiving energy from
receiving energy from Hashem. A tree is receiving energy from Hashem, right? Everything receives energy from Hashem. An animal receives energy from Hashem. A human being receives energy. You know, Daimim Tzameach Chaim Medaber. Now, a rock is a guf type of being. It's a bodily type of being. It has energy from Hashem. And then there is a human being. Now, a human being, what? Receives much more energy from Hashem than does a rock. Obviously, that's why it functions in such a more, human being functions in so much more of a sophisticated, complex, and a higher level than a rock. It's like, by way of example, your little flashlight, you put in a little AA battery, and it goes, but you can't power your car on a AA battery. It would be nice if we would be able to, right? But it doesn't work that way because it's so much more, it requires so much more energy and more power. And the same thing is also all the functioning that takes. So a human being has so much more divine energy than does an animal. An animal has more energy, divine energy, more chayis. It draws more chayis than does a tzameach, a plant. And a plant draws so much more energy than does a rock. Does that mean that when you look at a human being, you see godliness and you sense godliness more so than when you look at a rock?
No.
No. But there's so much more godly energy in the human being.
It's concealed.
So it's concealed. So the Alter Rebbe is going to tell us, while there is varying degrees of divine energy, the concealment across the board in this world is absolute and is the same everywhere. There's the amount of energy, and then there's whether it's revealed or whether it's concealed. So for example, I can have a wire running through, and how many volts of energy of electricity are going through the wire? I don't know, it's concealed. So I can have one wire that has 100 watts, another wire that has 1,000 watts, but to me it's the same. They're both concealed, even though one has more energy than the other. The same thing in this world also. This world is a very complex world, and there are many, many different types of creations and organisms, and every single one of them has a certain amount and a certain type of energy, and each one is unique and distinct. However, the one feature which everything shares is that the concealment is absolute. I don't look at anything and see Hashem. That's why, again, this world is called a world of Klippa. It's a world of Klippa. But an object which is a guf object, like a rock, has very little energy in it. An object which is a neshama object, let's say a human being or an animal, these are more neshama creations, more spiritual creations, has a greater degree of energy. So the difference between a neshama and a guf, both of which have divine energy, is not in terms of concealment, but in how much, the quantity of energy that's in there. Says the Alter Rebbe, I want to take this idea, I want to apply it to Torah mitzvahs, but listen a second, but the other way around. Meaning, a mitzvah also has a neshama and has a guf. The neshama is the kavana, and the guf, the body, is the mice of the mitzvah, the act of the mitzvah, or the moving of the mouth when you're saying, when you're davening or saying shema or bracha. In both of them, as mentioned earlier, just like in the entire world, the concealment is absolute. Whenever you're dealing with a mitzvah, whether it's the body of the mitzvah or the soul of the mitzvah, whether it is the act of the mitzvah or the kavana, the transparency is absolute. It's the opposite of this world. In this world, everything, the concealment is absolute and unequivocal and covers everything. By Torah and mitzvahs, the transparency is absolute. Meaning, whenever a person studies Torah, whenever a person does a mitzvah, there is nothing that is belying or hiding the fact that this is the Ratzon of Hashem. But how much of the divine energy, how much of the Ratzon of Hashem, how much is revealed in here? Here there's a difference. In Kavana, in the Kavana of the mitzvah, there's a lot of the Ratzon of Hashem is revealed in it. Just like a higher organism has more divine energy, there is more of Hashem's Ratzon in the Kavana than there is in the act. The transparency is the same across the board, but where is the Ratzon of Hashem more revealed? When I say more revealed, sorry, where is there more of Hashem's Ratzon? Is in the neshama as opposed to in the guf, in the kavana.
So you need both then. It's the summation of both.
You need both. Let's go back for a second to the credit card.
What do you mean by more rods?
Let's go back to the credit card. When I give the credit card to my child, motionless, expressionless, and I'm not only talking about what you can see, but I'm right now, my mind is elsewhere. I'm not overflowing with emotions and feelings and love. So let's talk about this act. This act of me giving over that credit card is an act of connection. It's an act of love. But how much love is revealed in that act? The transparency is absolute. This is an act of love. But how much love is in the act?
Very little.
Very little. It's a,
The Maisa,
it's, a- it's pretty much it's a sterile act. The act is somewhat lifeless and dead. What's animating this act is very clearly my connection with her. But how much of the connection is revealed in this act? Very little. When, on the other hand, I give it with my whole heart and with a smile, so then the act becomes alive and animated, and the act is like pulsating with the relationship. So in both cases, the transparency is the same, but in one case, the amount of the relationship and the love, both of them are for my relationship, my love. In fact, even if I grimace when I give it to her, anyone looking at it understands that it's because of my relationship and because of my love. It's the transparency is there. But then it's the tiniest, littlest amount. But that tiny little amount is transparent. But the more you put into it, the more the act becomes filled with that relationship and with that love. And the same thing is in terms of our Torah mitzvahs. Whenever I do a mitzvah, it's absolutely transparent to the Ratzon Elyon. There is no klipa over here. There's no klipa whatsoever. But will the act be an act? Okay, why are you doing it? Because you love Hashem. And because you're connected to Hashem. But there's a tiny little amount of energy in there, just like a stone has a tiny little amount of energy. Or is it going to be full and vibrant and absolutely, glowing with that relationship with Hashem? Every mitzvah is a relationship with Hashem. But will it be glowing with that relationship? That's what the kavanah does. And going back to what we spoke about last week, remember we spoke about the Meraglim and then Koirach. The Meraglim's mistake was that they were into spirituality. They thought spirituality had a value of its own. That's why they wanted to stay in the desert. Said Moshe to them that you're making a big mistake. Spirituality alone is worthless. It does nothing for you. You need to do a mitzvahs. You need to actually go into land. And you need to do the mitzvahs of Truma and Maestris and building the Beis HaMikdash and Shemitah and all the mitzvahs, because that's where the connection to Hashem lies. Lesson learned. Comes along Kairach afterwards and says, very good, so then the mitzvahs, if all we need to do is do the mitzvahs, then you're not, then who are you? Then why are you elevating yourselves over us? After all, we also can do the mitzvahs, just like you can. Your only advantage over us is in the area of spirituality. But you just told us that spirituality is not the main thing. That's the message that we learned from the Meraglim. What was Moshe's response, as we said last week? Boiker v'yoida. In the morning you will know. In the morning when the sun shines. The difference is that yes, we need the mitzvahs, but we need the sun to shine in the mitzvahs. We need the boiker. We need that our mitzvahs should be luminescent, should be filled with that spirituality. Spirituality on its own is nothing. But when you have a mitzvah which is infused with the kavanah, with the avam, with the yira, then the mitzvah becomes a bright and beautiful mitzvah. And what Hashem wants, yes, Hashem wants adira b'tachtoinim. But Hashem wants adira b'tachtoinim, which is a beautiful, shiny, radiant dir b'tachtoinim. He doesn't only want to have a world with which he has a relationship, or which is transparent to the relationship with him. He wants a world also where that relationship is alive and vibrant and beautiful and illuminated, and the acts of mitzvahs and that relationship is something which is alive and with passion and with excitement, and that is the purpose of kavanah of the mitzvahs. I know that was a lot and that was heavy. I gave you a little warning in advance about this. So you have, and that's why Chazal tell us that a mitzvah without kavanah is like a guf without a neshama. Does that mean that a mitzvah without kavanah is worthless? No. Just like a guf, as we mentioned, does a guf have energy from Hashem? Yes, a guf is something. But a neshama has so much more energy. When you do a mitzvah, even if it doesn't have any kavanah, you have the guf. Just like a guf has, you have the Ratzon Hashem was done. However, when you have the kavanah of the mitzvah, then you not only have the transparency, but the transparency also is in a much greater degree. You have a much greater degree of Hashem's Ratzon and of the relationship with Hashem and the connection with Hashem, which is being revealed in this act. So everything that we're saying over here, one second, about the kavanah of the mitzvahs, in no way minimizes the importance of the maisa. Why? Because without maisa, you don't have anything. The kavanah is there
To enhance it.
to enhance the maisa. Without the maisa, you have nothing. But at the same time, we can't underestimate what the mile of the kavanah is because that's really what infuses the life in the mitzvah. And there's so much of a greater degree of Hashem's ratzon is revealed in the mitzvah when you have the kavanah. Yes.
The ratzon is, the point of the ratzon is for us that we should feel different. The Gabi the Eibush is a matter of ratzon. Your marshal it does. You give a father and a daughter. The daughter has the child. The child has feelings. Let's say the child is sick and there's no emotions. It doesn't matter if I smile or not smile, because there's no what do you call it. To the Eibush that matters if I have what do you call it, or does it matter to me?
It definitely matters to Hashem. Definitely matters to Hashem. I just want to, if you turn to page 5, turn to page 100 for one moment, 5 lines from the bottom. Shezehu gam kein ritzoynei yizbarach. This is also part of the ratzon of Hashem. L'davka b'seichol u'machshava v'kavanas hamitzvah yismaisius, that we should connect to Hashem with our seichol and our machshava and the kavanas hamitzvahs, the mitzvahs that we do, u'b'kavanas kriyishma u'tfila, and having kavana by kriyishma and by tefillah. So that's just to bring you a raya. In other words, you want more of Havana, you want more of understanding in it. I think that you're approaching this from a perspective that we're not very important, and and who we are and what we are is not very important, which is not a.
That's what you mentioned. The bacteria. What relationship a bacteria has to a human?
That is correct.
That's what.
But at the same time, Hashem chose us.
Hashem chose that.
Hashem wants to have a dir b'tachtainim, and as we learned earlier on in chapter 30 and chapter 36. Hashem, He wants it that the dir b'tachtainim should be from our own choice. He wants us to elevate ourselves and to refine ourselves, not that it should be imposed from above. So our role over here is very important. And Hashem wants a world where, again, not only is He present, but He is revealed. And you might want to say, Hashem's presence in the world is what we do on mitzvah. Hashem is revealed in the world when it has kavanah. But the terms here are a little confusing, because the truth is, when we do a mitzvah, Hashem is also revealed in the world. As we mentioned, there is no Helm V'Hester when you do a mitzvah. There is no. The words he uses in the Pedic over here is, there's Helm and Hester is one thing. Helm and Hester means revealment, concealment and revelation. Concealment and revelation. So here we have to understand, in this world, Hashem is concealed everywhere. In Torah and mitzvahs, Hashem is revealed everywhere. Okay? Those are two absolutes. And then there's something else. There's another barometer altogether. It's called Tzimtzum v'Hispashtus. Tzimtzum v'Hispashtus means contraction, and Hispashtus is the opposite, is expansion. How contracted or expanded is Hashem? Now, you can have, and that's a totally different barometer. Because you can have a place, there can be absolute Helem, absolute concealment, and still there's Tzimtzum v'Hispashtus. That's why in this world there's absolute concealment, but in a stone the energy is very contracted, and in a human being the energy is very expanded. But both the expanded energy and the contracted energy is absolutely hidden. And then you have the opposite also. In a mitzvah, everything is absolutely revealed. Absolute transparency to Hashem. But there also you have Tzimtzum v'Hispashtus. You have how contracted or how expanded is the energy. In the kavanah of the mitzvah, there you have Hispashtus. There you have a great expansive amount of energy. And when you have the mitzvah, only the guf of the mitzvah, the act of the mitzvah, there also it's absolutely revealed, but there the oir is very mitzumtzum. The ratzon is very mitzumtzum. And Hashem wants not only there should be the revelation, which is that anytime you do a mitzvah, there's the revelation, but he wants also that the revelation should be in a way of hispashtus, not in a way of tzimtzum. Did I clarify anything?
Well, let's say it's kavanas. Let's say he's doing it begrudgingly, or God forbid he does, he does a very, Mitzvah Ba'Aver is not a whatever it is.
Mitzvah Ba'Aver is a different conversation.
Different conversation.
That's not Hashem's ratzon. So if that Hashem doesn't want you to do it, so you can't say that. So that's not revealing Hashem in this world. That's not revealing Hashem's ratzon. That's going against Hashem's ratzon.
Rabbi, in Slichot, we said Anshama lach, ve'aguf pa'olach, chusar amalach. In the Neshama is HaKadosh Baruch, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not for us. So how here we're talking that the Neshama is for us? Anshama lach, ve'aguf pa'olach. Everything is for him. He just gave us the Neshama, but it's not ours.
I'm not sure how anything that we learned today contradicts Hanashama Allah. Everything belongs to Hanashama Allah, Vaguf Shalach, right? The Neshama is Hashem's, the Guf is Hashem's, and therefore we have to do what Hashem wants. We have to do Torah mitzvahs. Now the question is, how we do Torah mitzvahs? That's what we're learning about. But no one here is claiming that the Guf belongs to us.
No, what I'm saying, Hashem giving it to us, this way we can do the mitzvot for him.
Okay?
Okay.
We're all in agreement on that. We're all in agreement. So again, I'm understanding that the concepts here are somewhat intense and somewhat deep, but the idea, again, the underlying idea is somewhat of a simpler idea. The exact terminology that the Rebbe uses in the Kabbalistic words might be a little more difficult, but the underlying idea is that when you do a mitzvah, you connect to Hashem. When you do a mitzvah, you create a dir b'tachtonim, you're creating a dwelling place for Hashem in whatever you did, whether the mitzvah with the physical object you did, or with the hand that did the mitzvah, with the mouth that did the mitzvah, with the energy of your neshama, of your nefesh habahamis that did the mitzvah, all that becomes a dir b'tachtonim, and everything, you've created this incredible connection to Hashem. But how much of the energy of Hashem's ratzon is in this mitzvah, that depends on the kavanah. The kavanah has the ability to make it a spiritual act. Not only a connected act, but also a spiritual act. And the spiritual act has more energy, by definition. Spiritual has more energy than does the physical. Okay. Let's do inside. We are holding on page Nun by the colon. 8 lines from the top. However, Afal PK, nevertheless, despite the fact that until now we're talking about the importance of Ma'isa, so Amru, Chazal tell us that Tefillah Ishar Baracha B'lei Kavana, if you daven or you say a Baracha without Kavana, and Kaguf B'lei Neshama. It's like a body without a soul. Pirush, this means to say, just like all creations in this world, sheyesh lahem guf v'neshama, they have a body and they have a soul. We're talking about everything in this world. Nefesh kol chai, the soul of everything that lives. V'ruach kol basar ish, the spirit of every human being. V'nishmas kol asher ruach chayim ba'apav, and the soul of everything that has the breath of life. Mekol balei chayim, from everything that lives. Everything in this world has a body and soul, and Hashem gives life energy to all of them, and creates them from nothingness to something tamid, constantly. With the energy and the divine light, which Hashem is constantly being mashpia on all of creations. Because also the physical body. And even stones and earth, which is inanimate, it has oyer, it has energy, life force from Hashem Yisbarach, so it should not revert to nothingness as it once was. It's a basic idea in Chassidus, which is that at every single moment, every single thing that there is here in creation is constantly being recreated. It is being infused with creative energy, which is keeping it in existence. And if Hashem were for one moment to withdraw his creative energy from any entity that is, it would revert to nothingness. So everything is being created. The body is being created, the soul is being created, the neshama and the guf are both constantly being created and are all recipients at every moment of energy from Hashem. Nevertheless, there's no comparison whatsoever between the energy and the life force which is in the body, compared to the energy and the life force which illuminates in the neshama of every living being. Again, we're not talking only about human beings. We're talking about the soul of everything that lives. So again, Dr. Rebbe is saying that even though everything has energy from Hashem, you cannot compare the energy that there is in a guf to the energy that there is in a neshama. Says the Alter Rebbe, even though both of them have the same light in terms of the bechinas hester panim, in terms of the fact that they're absolutely what? They absolutely conceal Hashem. And they both have garments that conceal. Sha'ir mistater u'misalam u'mislabish boy. The oir of Hashem, the energy of Hashem, whether it's the energy of Hashem that's in the guf, whether it's the energy of Hashem that's in the neshama, is completely concealed. And why is that? Kishneim heim mo'ilam haza. Both the guf and the neshama, we're talking about a guf and a neshama in this physical world, shebechalusai, which in general, mistater b'shava, equally hidden. All the energy from Hashem which is in this world is equally hidden bebechinas hester panim, in terms of that Hashem's face is absolutely hidden. Because the energy comes down through the different levels, it chains down through the worlds from one level to a lower level. And there's incredible contractions, how the light and the energy from Hashem becomes lessened and lessened, and to the point that the light enters klipa. Klipa means it's covered, it's concealed. And only through the klipa, through this concealment, it gives life to klalos olam haza achumri, to everything which is in this physical world. The hainu, meaning kol dvarim, everything hamutarim v'atahirim, everything which is permitted and pure, shaba'ilam haza. And then some of the light goes even further down. Umimena v'al yada, and through the klipas noiga, mushpoim dvarim hatmeim. Then afterwards you have even lower level of the lower level of klipa, gimel klipas hatmeis, for which gives life to all those things which are impure. Kihi bechinas mimutzas kanal, because klipas noiga is the intermediary between kedusha and between gimel klipas hatmeis, as mentioned earlier. So everything in this world completely covers up Hashem. It's like a person lying under a blanket. So there's the head and there's the toenails. You can't compare the two, but it's equally covered, right? Everything in this world, all the oir of Hashem is equally concealed. You don't look at anything and see Hashem.
Funny, in the modern world, when you take light and you contract it, it's more intense. You have a
laser. Right.
It can penetrate through a lot of things.
Right.
That's the modern concept. I guess it didn't exist then.
No, it existed then also. But here we're talking about if you have a big light of the sun and you make a little hole in your wall, and the light comes in. That's the kind of tzimtzum that we're talking about. Or you put up a big curtain. It's not a contraction. The word tzimtzum doesn't mean contraction in terms of compacting it or making it more
intense.
Yeah. Afal pikein, nevertheless, ha'aram shiyam shachas achayis. The light that comes from Hashem and the energy that comes from Hashem, asher Hashem meiru machaya derech levush, which Hashem gives light to everything and energy to everything in this world through this garment. In other words, everything that receives energy from Hashem in this world is through a garment that absolutely conceals its source of Hashem. However, this energy ein shava bekulan is not the same in everything. Bebechinas tzimtzum v'yispashtus, in terms of how contracted or how expanded this energy is. When you're talking about a body, the inanimate body, mamish, ka'avanim v'afar, in physical bodies which are inanimate, like stones or earth. So the amount of energy that comes in is very, very, very contracted. You can't imagine this kind of contraction. In other words, only a very, very small amount of the energy is in there. The energy is so small to the point it doesn't even have the capacity to grow. As opposed to in plants and vegetation, over there's more light. There's more light of Hashem. It's more expanded. But again, the difference is not in terms of the concealment. The difference only is in the amount of energy that's there. In general, this entire world is divided divided into four different levels, which are doimim, the inanimate, semeach, the vegetation, chai, that which lives, and medaber, and the human being. Why is there four? Because the Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which creates everything, has four letters. Which from there they come. So the reason why, so you have four different levels. You have the least amount of divine energy of oyer from Hashem is found in doimim, and that's why it has no visible energy whatsoever, other than the fact that it exists. And then you have tsemeach, which has the ability to grow. But then you have the higher life forms, which are chai, animals, which not only they grow physically, but also they have desires and wants and seichel and midas. And then you have medaber, the human being. Why is it that there's more or less? It's because they emanate from the four letters of Hashem's name. The Yud, the Kei, the Hey, and the Vav, and the Hey. The Yud has the most energy. The Hey has less energy, and the Vav has even less, and the Hey has even less. Which is interesting, because this makes an interesting point, which is, you might think that there's Hashem, and the oyer of Hashem, the energy of Hashem. How much energy of Hashem is within any given item, creation? As much as it can take, as much as it can absorb. So, for example, if you stick in something, an appliance into the wall, so how much energy is it going to use?
A light bulb is probably better.
A light bulb is a very good example. If it's 100, right? No, but also here, if you stick in your alarm clock, it takes a very little energy. You stick in your microwave or your vacuum cleaner, you're drawing a lot of energy. But that's not because there's a difference in the source. That's only because there's a difference in the keli. Or for example, the sun shines equally everywhere. And if you have a smaller window, less light will come in. If you have a bigger window, more light will come in. So one might think also that the doimim, the body of the doimim, the body of the inanimate, is only a keli, can only absorb a certain amount of energy, and that's why there's very little energy in there. And then tsemeach is designed in a way that it's a more complex creation, so therefore it can take in more energy from Hashem. But Alter Rebbe says no. The reason for this is because of where their source is. In their source already, the source of doimim is a lower source than the source of medaber. The source of doimim is the last hey of Hashem's name. It's the spiritual doimim. Malchus is the spiritual doimim. It's actually called a rock, Malchus, for that reason. So, weiter inside page 100, 8 lines from the top. And just like there's no comparison. You can't compare the energy which is in the inanimate, the doimim, and the semeach and the vegetation. To the amount of divine energy hamlubeshas b'chayim medaber, in an animal and a human being. Even though that they're all equal again in terms of the concealment, they're all equally concealed. And because this is an Elam Haza, they all have one garment. That is the garment of Klipas Noiga. The same way, now we're finally getting to the punchline. You cannot compare the amount of Erin Sof. What is the Erin Sof? The revelation of Hashem's Ratzain as is, Beli Hester Panim Uluvush Klal, without any concealment. Hameira Umulubeshes b'mitzvahs Maisiyis Mamish, that is in a mitzvah which is done in action. V'chein b'mitzvahs Hatluyis b'dibor, the same thing as a mitzvah which is a speech dibor, Rebitius Vasayim, when you move your lips. But Beli Kavana, if it's done without Kavana, Shehu Nechshav K'maisa Mamish, which that's considered like Maisa Kinal, you can't compare that. The amount of Erin Sof, Legabi Ha'arev Amshachas Erin Seif Baruch Hu. You can't compare that to the Erin Sof, the infinite light of Hashem, Hameira, which illuminates Lubeshas and is in B'Kavanas HaMitzvahs Ma'asiyos, in the Kavana of the action mitzvahs. Sha'adam Miskavin Basiyasna, when a person has in mind when doing a mitzvah, Kedei L'Dafka B'Yizbarach, to connect to Hashem, Aydekim Ritzoynei, through doing Hashem's will, because you know that Hashem and His Ratzon are one. So you know that when you're doing Hashem's Ratzon, you're doing His mitzvah, you're connecting to Hashem. V'chein, the same thing, b'kavanas hatfilah, same thing is the kavana of davening, or Kriya Shema, or b'chaiseha, the brachas of Kriya Shema, v'shar brachas, and all other brachas. Shebekavanasi behen, that when you have kavana in all these things, medabek machshavte v'sichlei b'yisbarach, you are connecting your machshava and your seichel to Hashem. So that's the guf neshama analogy. Just like in this world, there is so much more energy in the neshama than the guf, even though everything is the same in terms of concealment. The same thing is in the guf and the neshama of a mitzvah, or learning Torah, or davening, even though in terms of concealment they're the same, in the fact that there is no concealment, there's absolute transparency, but still the amount of energy, of divine energy that there is in the kavana is so much more than the energy that can be revealed in a physical act.
I mean, if you help somebody with...
Just 1 second. You wanted to...
Sorry.
No. I think there should be a clear differentiation here. And it says a kavana of davening and learning. We're talking about the general kavana to be medavet with Hashem. So we're not even talking of course the kavana itself of just plain davening to just have kavana, not to say it without kavana altogether. We're not talking about that type of kavana here.
Sorry.
There's two kavanas. There's the kavana of davening, that you need to have kavana while you're davening, and then there's a kavana of a mitzvah, that you're doing the mitzvah with a kavana to be closer to Hashem, to do what Hashem wants.
And Dr. Rebbe clearly separates. Right. You're saying I didn't clearly differentiate them enough.
We're not even talking about the kavana that you have to have just by davening. You can't daven without kavana. That we're not talking about here. You can't daven without kavana. Just say the words. We're not talking about
there are several different levels in kavana. Actually, we didn't really go into it. We're not. There's without kavana.
About saying the words without thinking what you're saying.
Okay. Let's break that down a little more. When you daven, if there's a certain kavana, which if you don't have the kavana, there is no davening. Because as we spoke last week, tefillah is avodah shebalev.
Right.
Which means that when I'm davening, I have to have in mind, I am, the dal of nei mi ato oimed, I'm standing before Hashem, and I am being mischanin to Hashem. I am praying to Hashem, davening to Hashem for my needs. If you don't have that kavana, there was no tefillah, period.
Yeah.
There was no tefillah. It's not pshat that you davened and you weren't yoitza. There was no tefillah, the gedder of tefillah.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, good. Then there's another kavana. The kavana is the kavana of the words, pirush hamilas. That's a separate kavana. That's not ma'akiv. And that's what we said earlier, that tefillah b'lei kavana, you're yoitza. You're yoitza. Alama, it's keguf b'lei neshama. At the end of the day, if you're davening, but you're not, your heart isn't in the words. So you weren't, the words aren't filled with your relationship with Hashem, and aren't filled with the connection to Hashem. They're not filled with the dveikus on Hashem, which is created through the mitzvah. Again, when you do a mitzvah, that is dveikus. but how much of that dveikus is revealed in the mitzvah? So when I do a mitzvah without any emotion, without any kavana, I am davik, I am connected, but that dveikus is barely revealed. It's in a very bitzimtzum. It's very, very contracted. Again, there is no concealment. We're not talking about concealment. It's about how much of the oyer is possible to be expressed through that vehicle. The physical is not a vehicle for oyer, for revelation. Spiritual is a vehicle for revelation. Am I making sense? Again, it's when I'm doing the mitzvah, there is no concealment. Even if there is no kavanah, there is no concealment. The act itself reveals the connection. But how much of that connection is revealed? Only the very basic fact that I am connected. Nothing more sophisticated, nothing more complex, nothing more beautiful. It is the kavanah. The spiritual has the capacity, the kavanah, my love for Hashem, my fear of Hashem, my awe. The spiritual feelings I have, they are the vehicle for so much more revelation of this connection with Hashem that I'm creating through the mitzvah. But again, the connection is through the mitzvah. The revelation of the connection, that is through the ava and the yira and the kavanah that I have.
Can't you say that the hava of the yira has more, your connection is more stronger bonded? The connection also would vary. Without the kavanah, the connection is bare minimal. With more emotion.
No.
So
no.
The connection is the same strength.
The connection is absolute. There is no difference in the connection between the mitzvah to one mitzvah and another. In that sense, Korach was right. In terms of the connection that's created, the biggest tzaddik who gives tzedakah and the biggest rasha who gives tzedakah, they're equally connected, and that act is equally transparent to Hashem.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
But how revealed is that connection?
So why is it necessary to reveal it if the connection is absolute?
That's what the Boker V'Yeda. That's what Hashem doesn't only want to be present in this world. He wants that it should be revealed, and revelation is in the spiritual, not in the physical.
Yeah, if the person receiving it, if you make a world of a difference to him, you was nothing, fine, whatever. You helped him, you saved a life, you did whatever it was, but to the recipient, you made the world of a difference. To you, it was nothing. Is it because it was lacking kavanah? Is there any less revelation? If it was lacking in kavanah?
Start over.
There are different mitzvahs. So you can do money is a diamond. You can give someone, help someone with money. If someone affluent has so much of it, it's a few $100 means nothing. To you, it's nothing. To the person on the receiving end, it makes a world of a difference. To you, it's nothing. Fine. I put aside anyway 10% to give, whatever. I gave it. There was no kavanah. Is there any less of a revelation because there wasn't a kavanah? If you're a tzal member, you're taking a tzal call. Fine, so you got to put lights and sirens on Shabbos, you got to go out or whatever and take some red lights. There wasn't a kavanah. It was a thrill.
Wow, okay.
You saved someone's life.
Well, let's back up a little. I'm not going to address that last part, okay?
I mean, I understand that davening. This certain things have you say it's bracha before it's a kavanah. I understand, but certain things are just on the day-to-day life. You do it just by rote, by just mechanically almost.
You have any children by any chance?
I do.
You do? You ever fed your child, bathed your child, got your child dressed, right?
Okay.
Now, anyone who's watching that, why are you doing that?
It's already innate.
I understand, but if a person stops for a second and thinks, why are you doing that? It's very obvious. Most people, it's so obvious that they're not even stopping to think. But if someone were to stop a second, why are you doing that? Because you love your child, right? How much of your love is revealed in that act?
Well, it depends on how you do it.
The fact of the love is there, but how much of the love is revealed? The fact of the love is revealed regardless of how you do it. But how much of the love is revealed? It's the same. I know this is the same much I'm giving earlier.
With the credit card.
Okay.
When you give your child to eat and you're all excited and you're smiling, and it's with the love is felt. The act is filled. The act is a beautiful act. It's an act which is filled with love. Now, if you don't have that kavanah, If you're doing it but you're in a rush, is the love not revealed? It is, but how much love is it? It's very little. Very little. But whatever it is, it's there. But the love, but the act, it's all about the act. It's filling the act, our mitzvahs, filling it with that. It's all there, the connection. The transparency to Ratzon HaElyon is in every mitzvah. This is the key point. Every time I do a mitzvah, I'm being utterly transparent to Hashem's Ratzon. Everything in this world hides Hashem's Ratzon. When I do that's called Hester Panim. When I'm doing a mitzvah, I'm revealing Hashem's Ratzon. But how much of the Ratzon is being revealed? Every mitzvah is revealing the Ratzon. And without the mitzvah, there is no Ratzon. It's a very important key. It's only the mitzvah that reveals the Ratzon. But if I only do the act, okay, just the fact that I'm doing Hashem's Ratzon is revealed. When I have the kavanah, then the whole mitzvah becomes filled with the beauty of that transparency at Hashem's Ratzon. In a much deeper way, in a much more spiritual way.
It's hard to even have kavanah. Certain things do mechanic. If you're on the bus and you see an old lady, you get up for her, you have kavanah before it. It's natural. You just whatever. You certain things you do just.
But you could do it begrudgingly also.
No, that's
not how you do it. What you do and how is two different. You're talking about the what and the how. It's
you're
how
doing
you
the same mitzvah. You're doing that because of a mitzvah. What kind of mitzvah?
You're a mensch. You get up out of whatever. Certain things you do mechanically.
Specifically doing mitzvahs. When you do a mitzvah.
Chesed is also a mitzvah, isn't it?
So if you want to bring it down properly, you have to think about the mitzvah. You want to do the Ratzon Hashem.
Okay. We will stop over here. We will continue Mir Hashem next week. And Mir Hashem next week we will finish the Perek. And then we'll take a little break for a few weeks.
Pesach's coming.
Pesach's coming, yeah. Okay.
I don't know if more